Whatever it is, just design it the way you want. Think through it, and then you can give it your best shot.
It's not like, we first build a company, then we exit it, and then we start creating a beautiful life. Actually, in and through the business, we can do that as well.
Welcome to Get Your House in Order, where the Medici brothers, investors and entrepreneurs, Chris Auditore and Dr. Philip Zimmermann, discuss timeless principles of success, significance and legacy. A podcast for business owners who want to design a beautiful life and a beautiful business. Sponsored by the one and only exclusive Medici community.
Welcome back to the podcast, Get Your House in Order. Today, we're going to talk about actually an underlining theme of everything.
Make it a beautiful house.
Make it a beautiful house. Not just an order, but actually beauty.
Orderly sounds very German. It's like you and I are not the most typical Germans where everything needs to be so nicely in order. I think it's actually more a beautiful house. Let's create a beautiful house.
Well, and that's what we're going to talk about. So basically this whole theme and this whole idea came when I actually had to contemplate it on what I want my daughter's life to be. Existential
questions. Yeah, you're starting off with something deep here.
Very deep. So I looked at you, Chris. You got married early.
You looked at me.
And you got
role model, Philip. You've got the best role model.
You got kids early. And I looked at it and I was like, that's a lot of work. 3 boys.
I agree.
They are a lot of work. I like my life. I got married late. My wife and I, we love life. We enjoy life. We love traveling. We love the freedom. We also even for a long time thought, should we have kids or not?
I would have kicked your butt up and down the street if you hadn't.
I know, because you just want to take care of the kids here when we are going out on a date as a good babysitter.
I love that.
So that's why we got married later in life, got kids later, and when my first daughter was born, we thought of what kind of name do we gonna give her, and we chose the name Zoe, which in Greek is the name life. And so for me that was the question: what kind of life do I want my daughter to have? And the answer, at least in the Western world, that I get is everybody tells me I just want my kid to be happy. I just want my kid to be happy. And that's kind of their telos. In Greek, that's kind of the goal, the end goal of your life in Greek, actually it is happiness in philosophy, but happiness is a whole different idea of what we now of today think of happiness. So that's a different story. But this idea that I don't care what my kids do, I don't care.
As long as they are happy.
As long as they are happy, they can kill somebody as long as they're doing it in a happy mood. It's almost as extreme as that. And when I really thought deeply about this, is like, no, that's not what I want Zoe's life to just be a happy life. Now, of course, we all want our kids to be happy, but if that's it, that's for me not enough. So there needs to be more. There needs to be something that is deeper than just that superficial happiness that this culture basically is trying to give kids. And by the way, it's not working. So this is the first generation where this is basically 50 years ago. If you would have told your neighbor, oh, I just want my kids to be happy, they would have laughed at you. I want my kids to work, find family, do all of these things. But so that's the first generation where it's about happiness and it's not working because people, the young generation and our generation is more depressed than ever. We have really a lot of mental challenges. So happiness is not, basically number one, even though we are trying to pursue happiness for our kids and even for our own lives. And so we can talk about why this is not working. But even more, I think we need a reframe. We need a rethink. What is the goal, the telos of life? So for me, it's not happiness, and we hinted at it. It's what I define as a beautiful life. Because I really believe a beautiful life is something that is worth pursuing because it's more rich and more deeper, and we can go into it. But for you, Chris, for your kids, you have 3 boys. What do you want for them?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and thank you for remembering that it's It is a lot of work. We had basically a handover a few years ago between my wife and I. For those of us who kind of observed our family life, for the first 10, 12 years of raising the kids, 100% my wife was in charge, because she was the primary nurturer and caretaker, and we didn't evenly split up kind of our responsibilities. We never did. In fact, we even hired a nanny full time. Every year we had an au pair girl. We had like 10 different ones to kind of help and support mainly Andrea.
At the same time, or
no, one after the other.
Your kids are work, so
yeah, they were work, and we did not split the time evenly. And I know that in culture, modern families, it's kind of mom and dad both raise the kids equally, and everything needs to be shared. We didn't. But that was not our philosophy. It was Andrea's primary responsibility. Now we did a handover a few years ago, and actually now. If you'd ask our boys, and we've got three sons who are by now 20, 18, and 15, they would actually say that I'm the primary person responsible for the boys. There was a handover. Well, for various reasons. Number one, that they are boys, and as teenagers, they are quite, let's say, strong personalities, with their, character, personality, but also their, physically. My boys are very, very fit and active and quite some fighters. And we really felt like there needs to be a shift. I need to be more involved, and so now oftentimes when they ask a question to Andrea, she actually says you need to talk to dad about that. Now she never did that when they were small, but now it's so I can now say I can talk about parenting.
Raising kids.
I can talk about raising kids now. Before everyone would have laughed at me, but now I feel like I'm very involved.
Late to the game, but
I'm late to the game, but I'm in the game. Well, the difference between happiness and happy life and a beautiful life. For me, it has everything to do with meaning. It has everything to do with meaning, purpose, and significance. Now, I just wrote this book, From Success to Significance, on the life of Lorenzo de' Medici. Over this past year, I've had lots of, let's say, reflection, lots of reading around this whole theme. Is once you've been successful, how do you go to the next phase, and what does that next phase actually mean? And I've had lots of conversations with business guys around this topic, like what is there beyond just making money, building a company that really is worth pursuing. And it always comes down to meaning and purpose, which is different for me than it is for you. It's not like we all have the same general purpose, but in a sense we need to discover like what is really giving us this deeper fulfillment. And what I want to pursue my life with is really creating these things of meaning and purpose. And what I think is good for me there, I really also want my kids to do. I want them to not just work, but to pursue a calling that goes deeper and that is more beneficial beyond their own little, life that they're creating, but way beyond into the world. And so for me, that's kind of where I'm entering the game.
Yeah, it's a beautiful life is not just about feeling a life full of joy and a happiness all the time. It's actually having meaning, play a role, ethics play a role, depth play a role, purpose, significance, and sometimes doing the right thing, even though it costs you, even though it's hard. It doesn't feel like it's great in the moment. It doesn't feel like, oh, this is I love to do this, we have a great role model in our family of that, and that's my grandfather. We just a few weeks ago had the funeral from our grandmother, who died over 90, lived really a beautiful life. That's basically the reflection. But She had a stroke a few years ago, and my grandfather, who he's now 92, but he's still very strong. A few years ago, basically, he was in retirement. He lived a very successful life. He had a lot of contribution, especially in Africa. Kings, royalty, presidents. He sat down with Mandela twice. I mean, he really oversaw a very important organization and work in Africa. And then he retired and had thousands of people kind of under his leadership. And now he was at home, and our grandma got sick, and basically he became the caretaker of her, which the whole family was like, how long can he do that? Is this really healthy? Is this really good? Even for him, he still was so active. I mean, I remember his 90th birthday. He told us that at 6 o'clock in the morning, outside of his gym, because for 50 years he went to the gym every day at 6 o'clock, they were waiting with the balloons and with kind of singing the people from the gym, because he was the oldest and one of the most active members in the gym. So he still, is not an old guy, so to speak. He has the money to travel the world. He has all the opportunity, and he decided to just take care of our grandmother. And do stuff that I thought, he would never do. He started every day cooking for her, calling our Aunt Ingrid on phone and kind of telling her, is this the right way of how to cook the meal? And then just a year ago, I think he bought a whole kitchen without even asking his 3 daughters, because he wanted better tools for taking care of the meals, so he could serve our grandmother. Now, it was an amazing sacrifice, and I remember a few months ago sitting down with him and asking him, and said, Grandpa, why are you doing this? And he looked at me and said, Philip, your grandma has sacrificed so much so I could live my dreams. And I feel like this is my last big responsibility. Well, I came back from that thinking that this is not a happy life. I mean, this was really tough months, but it was a beautiful life. I mean, to see our grandfather, to take care of our grandmother in the way he did, with a love and with nothing. As a great leader to many, he became the servant of one, was just an unbelievable testimony of a beautiful life. And if he would have just pursued a happy life, he would have left grandma and just kind of went on a cruise and lived the life. But that's the kind of life that I think a beautiful life includes. That kind also of suffering for things that are more important than just feeling good in the moment.
Yeah, it's a great role model and example in our family. I 100% agree. Now, kind of bringing it kind of to our let's say roles of now, we're still kind of younger, we're still trying to figure out the different areas of our lives. I'm in a lot of conversations around the theme of legacy, obviously, which is really kind of at the end of your life, like, what do you want to leave behind, not just kind of in terms of wealth, but also in terms of values. And so I'm in these, let's say, deeper conversations, very personal, very private, every week somewhere. It's because I can, in a sense, afford to have these kind of conversations. I don't just need to be in the operational buzz, but I can sit down, and this is where I feel like I'm taking in also from a lot of people doing reflections on the negative things that they have pursued over the years that now are paying a price. So one of the main things that I want to put in here for a beautiful life is delayed gratification. And in fact, in my new book, I put a whole section on Lorenzo de Medici on how that was one of the current themes, delayed gratification. Now, whoever knows my personality, this is not the mantra of my life. I'm in the moment. I want to see results. I want to be. I want to see how things develop. And so for me to delay something, patience is not one of my virtues. And most business guys are not patient. I mean, most business people I know are not patient. Yet at the same time, we all know that really it's only the things where we show persistency, discipline, devotion, sacrifice over time actually leads to that deeper level of satisfaction that now today in this episode we call a beautiful life. So let me talk about relationships. Because you mentioned the marriage. I mean, in a sense, marriage for me is this pursuit of a beautiful life. Like, happiness, it can almost be defined sleeping around with as many women as you want, going on adventurous affairs. And we know a lot of people that's how they basically live their lives. I know a lot of guys who basically, a lot of sex, a lot of instant gratification, is basically how they define how they seek pleasure. And for me, marriage almost is the counterbalance. I decide that I'm not going to be messing around with all these other women. I'm going to focus in on one woman, and I'm going to devote my life to her, just like you just described with our grandfather. And so for me, that marriage is a way to actually find a beautiful life. And so that's why for me it's so tragic when marriages fall apart. That's when people split up, when things break apart. In our culture we're like, oh yeah, I have a new girlfriend. Oh, I have a new wife. It's just like we keep. Well, and actually for me that it's almost like that kills some beauty that is developing in a long-term relationship. And that's where I almost want to put out here a counter argument for marriage, for devotion, for sacrifice, for sacrificial love in a relationship, in the good and the bad. I every week I almost feel like I ask couples that are dating, that are not married yet. They're like, when are you getting married? And they're like, oh, we don't know yet, but we're living together and we're committed. And I something in me always feels like, if that is not a concept that you're striving for. Now, I know it can be difficult to find the right partner and so forth. I don't want to be disrespectful in any way. But if that's not a concept that you're pursuing, that you actually do want to commit to one relationship in the good and the bad and the ugly times, then I feel like you're cutting yourself short when it comes to a beautiful life.
Well, it's this whole idea of, pay now and play later, or play now and pay later. It's always one or the other in almost everything in life. If we just want to play now, we're gonna pay later, and normally with interest. Normally, basically, it's more difficult. If we learn, and we even know that from research and studies, if kids can do kind of push gratification away and can kind of wait a little bit longer, they will have a more happy and fulfilling life, actually, because that's one of the foundational pieces. Now, for me, this idea of a beautiful life also opened up kind of this room for pain, for suffering, for grief, that I can welcome that into my life. Because we both love reading, and we love self-development. I read so many self-help books, where it's just all about just a positive attitude. You just chuck it away. You look in the mirror and, oh, man, there's a winner looking at you, and he's looking good today, and there's nothing that can overcome you. And this was really difficult when all of a sudden grief and true suffering came, and I did not have that category. I just looked in the mirror like, you go away. And that's not a beautiful life. If somebody that you would deeply love dies and you don't grieve, there's something wrong with you. Now, if you grieve for years and don't get out of that, there's also something wrong with you. So that's why I love this idea of beautiful life, because you can really assess this. Is this giving me a beautiful life? And so suffering, grief, death, all of the things that make up our lives and the reality of our lives, we can embrace and we can sit in them. And interesting, the irony is that the more I was like thinking that, okay, this is okay, I became more content, because I was like, oh, now I can accept that. I have a category that in the beginning years, in my early 20s, when I just read these self-help books and just thought I need to be positive all the time, I think they fall short on that. A beautiful life actually involves that you can suffer with dignity, that you can be in pain, and still basically have really a dignity that is beautiful.
Let's talk about the business aspect of this as well. So we've talked about kind of the, how in our relationships we can pursue something that is more beautiful than just happy. But, I think one of the great opportunities we have as entrepreneurs and business owners is that in and through our companies, we can actually pursue a beautiful life. And I would say a life of success, significance, and legacy. It's not like, oh, we first build a company, then we exit it, and then we start creating a beautiful life. Actually, in and through the business, we can do that as well. I find it deeply fulfilling to be in, building something out with a team, that pursued vision together, investing our time, going long hours, and building things out. I just think that that's where business owners, other than, people who are just normally employed, can really fabricate that on, as they're developing things, and we can't blame our boss, we can't blame the market or the circumstances. We can actually do that in and through our business.
Well, I think that in life, your personal life, your relationships, and in business, it really comes down to what do you really truly desire? What do you truly want? What it's kind of your version of a beautiful business or a beautiful life. So I think a lot of people don't reflect enough to say, okay, what kind of relationship do I want? In marriage, it's like, oh, I want a great marriage. Yeah, so define a great marriage for me. What's, Steve Covey's, start with the end in mind. What is the end goal, basically? And then kind of work yourself towards this end goal. And so how do you want your relationship to look like? Your family, design it. I always joke, Germans, spend more time planning their holiday and their vacation because they get so many days than their lives. They don't really design, basically, how do I want my life to look like? And the same is true in business. There are different ways on how to do business. Now, of course, there are core things that you need to kind of make sure that work. But do you want a business that is around you? Do you like working with a small team with 2 to 10 people? Do you prefer to be a solo entrepreneur? Do you prefer to build a big company? Do you prefer to actually go for a big exit? Do you want to kind of take the big swing to see if this becomes a unicorn? Whatever it is, just design it the way you want. Think through it, and then you can give it your best shot. But if you don't even know it, if you wing it, because there are different rules in the startup scene than if you're in a family office, or if you're in a small kind of medium-sized company, there are different ways on how to set things up. But if you don't know, how do you want your beautiful life and your beautiful business to actually look like? How do you want to, that's why one of the exercises I give always at the end of the year is, just write down for me, what is your perfect ideal day look like? And I'm not talking about your vacation day when you're laying on the beach with a pina colada.
That sounds like a beautiful day as well, though.
Well, I don't know. But basically, if when you're working, what's your ideal work day look like? What do you want to do? With whom do you want to do it? How do you want to pursue it? And if you're the business owner, that's why we are so bullish on being a business owner, is because owning your own business, your own company, makes you basically the boss. You can't hide. Every problem is you are responsible, because you either didn't solve it or you created it, or you tolerate it. So basically, these are the only options. But you have it in your power to actually design and change it into the life that you want. Now, that doesn't mean it's a quick thing that always, I just kind of manifest it and it happens. It's like, no, I need to work, but I at least know what the end is, and so I needed time to design it.
Yeah, so I would put in that some specific goals on this pursuit actually help me to let's say also take care of the hard stuff. This is why I'm so always enamored about goal setting, because if I have something that I'm working towards, then it means I need to sacrifice other things. A goal basically. Why a goal is so important, because it kind of eliminates all the million other things you could be doing, because you're pursuing one thing, and that needs to take steps of sacrifice and work and emails and conversations in order to get towards that goal. And I think if that's why I think this process of creating a beautiful life, actually, I would say you need to put in some specific goals that you want to achieve. Now, that's not the end of the story, then there's another goal, but it's almost like milestones you need to set. So I'll give you one of them. My son Cedric has been saying that he wants to go on a safari in Africa. Now, I've done lots of safaris. I spent my whole childhood growing up in Africa. I've taken Carlos with me on a great safari, and Andrea and I have been to many different ones. But our youngest son, because of COVID and because of the last few years, we didn't do so much in Africa. He hasn't been on a safari, but he's heard me tell great stories. Now I've put this out there, almost like as a family, we'll all go together and we'll explore things together. And that's a little goal, and I know it will be very beautiful and meaningful for us, but it's something specific. So I want to make sure that as we're kind of thinking about this broader term, you can actually put in some specific goals for yourself, for your family, for your business, where you say, this is what I want to do in this month. I'm going to pay the money to do that in order to experience that, and it's part of me creating a beautiful life.
Well, it's bringing it down to goals but goals under this category. What does a beautiful life look like, and what does a beautiful business look like? And let's make some goals that will help us create a beautiful business. To just have more growth and more money in the bank, that's not the bigger why you're gonna live for. But if you have exactly like your like you mentioned, some gold under the category of a beautiful life, that's where also the whole theme of generosity comes in, where we really think, okay, a beautiful life is a life of generosity. Anybody who is stingy is not, in my eyes, beautiful. There is no beauty in being stingy. So a life of generosity is so much more beautiful. I mean, a funny story, doing Christmas, my wife and I, we kind of always look at different names of people and of organizations that we kind of want to give an extra amount of money to, and kind of bless next to what we basically give through our non-profit or foundation work. It's like, okay, who in our lives do we want to kind of bless? And so my wife comes with a few names, I come with a few names, and it was unbelievable the feedback that we got in the situations we were able to help in. Because we were just able to contribute there. It made my life so much more beautiful. And right during that exercise, I actually went to get a haircut, and I'm cheap with my haircut, so my haircut is like $10-12.
Yeah, we can see that.
Yes. So I thought, you know what, I'm gonna give this guy, because he's cutting my hair, since a few months now. I'm gonna give him the biggest tip he ever had. And so go up to pay, and I never pay cash, so I only have my phone with me. But my wife it just came by with the kids, because they were kind of at the fair there, and so I asked her if she had money, and so she gave me all the cash she had. And I basically gave him the biggest tip he ever gotten, and he was like, he couldn't believe it. He hugged me, and I was like, it was beautiful. I go outside. My wife says, "Hey, can I have the change?" And I was like, "I'm sorry, there's no change." But it was one of the best days of my year last year, because basically I tipped this guy in a way that he never got tipped. So. A beautiful life. Chris really wrote a very meaningful book, From Success to Significance, with this whole theme of beauty that goes through that book. You can get it on Amazon, From Success to Significance by Chris Auditore Zimmerman. If you want to hear more about the Medici community and how to be part of it, just visit medicilegacy.com. But thanks for watching or listening, and please design a beautiful life.